Right. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to the Bald and Bold podcast. My words got a bit stuck there.
Trying it again.
Oh, my life. I should have bought a box of Kleenex. I'm laughing.
Hello.
Oh, God.
So, hello together. So it's our third podcast, and this time it's the first time that we have a special guest with us.
Mystique.
And it's
X-Men.
Mystique, right?
It's Mystique. Ignore the name that's on the Zoom window because that's not her real name.
Yeah. Mystique / Daft Punk video.
So to be honest, we are laughing like hell because we didn't know how that happened. But with us today is Elisa Tidswell, and Elisa is coach, and she is also. We met her at our certified business coach qualification at Mind Valley. She was leading our pods with us, and we are so grateful, Elisa, that we have you here with us.
Thank you. Shall I turn off this background now? That
Please.
is not working for me.
I mean, I think it's hilarious, but yeah.
There we go. There we go.
She is. There's
I have
Mystique.
been crying with laughter in the background. So we were just talking about how I was thinking about before we came on this podcast, how you two are just like my buds now. We're all buddies, right? We're all friends. And how this doesn't feel like work. Like how ridiculous that this is work. It's not ridiculous, it's amazing. And I was thinking how wonderful it would be. Like, why is not all work like this? Where it's like people getting together and like we've literally been laughing for the last 10 minutes. I've been crying with laughter. And there's so much ease and flow and easy collaboration. Why isn't all work like this? Like, what I know that, for example, I definitely grew up with this mindset, this belief that work has to be hard, has to be grueling. You're not going to enjoy it. Work is not to be enjoyed. It's to like pay the bills at the end of the month if you're lucky. So I thought that would be a cool place to start.
No, I think it is. And before we do, I just want to acknowledge what Mike said. And I think, we are friends, but I think the thing that draws us all together, and this is the wider kind of coaching community that we experience kind of 3 beautiful days in Tallinn with, is, and I've completely forgotten what I was going to say, is the fact that we're all from the heart, right? And so when Mike and I conceived of this idea, it was literally from our first WhatsApp phone conversation. And so we like to keep things organic. And I just want to say thank you to you, because I think you have, for me, and I know I said this to you in Tallinn, but I'm going to say this for the purposes of everyone else, is that I'm really, really grateful, because there are periods when I still lose faith and lose trust. And the fact that we see you every week, the fact that you ground us, the fact that you are so invested in this and invested in all of us is like a really, really beautiful thing. So I just want to acknowledge you and say thank you for that before I start crying with laughter again.
Okay, good. Thank you also, because, this is a two-way thing. It's a collaboration, right? The whole program wouldn't exist. Well, first of all, it wouldn't exist for Ajit, right? But it wouldn't exist if it wasn't for people like you who, there's this stupid fragmentation that we have in society that business and anything heart-centered, like it's almost like you have to leave your humanity at the door, as it says in Steve Chandler and Will Keeper's book, The Leader and the Coach. It's almost like expected that you walk through the door at work, you leave your humanity at the door, and then you turn up and you're this robot. And this is a collaboration. This is a co-creation, and you guys show up as your full selves. You're not hiding behind that veil anymore of, I just want to be a business coach, or, like whatever that is, but just this very mechanical, let's remove the humanity from it. You guys are like full out, I'm ready to discover my humanity and put myself into it and help others do the same. So I want to acknowledge you back.
Yes. And I think what you say here, I mean, this is what actually makes us all so close to each other, because I know when we had the first pod with you, and I was speaking up there, and I was just telling about a situation that I also quit my job and wanted to be out of the corporate world. But if I look at that whole thing, the reason why that happened was because you hold the space, and you hold the space in a very beautiful way that actually everybody feels completely safe. And I think this is to come. I want to come back to the question that you raised in the beginning. This is what differentiates those kind of things or this kind of communities from, let's say, work. Because at work, you have barely a situation where you feel safe, right? You need to perform. This is how you trained even in school. You are just measured by grades, by not who you are. You're not measured for who you are. You're measured by if you perform, if you deliver, if you can repeat what the teacher told you. And that is the thing. And everybody looks if you're making a mistake. And if we build an environment like this, where everybody can just be themselves, I think this is the moment where it doesn't feel like work, where it feels human, because humans want to connect. And we're all in that round, and we just, I'm also so grateful that especially you are our first guest here on our little crazy idea a couple of weeks ago. And yeah, sorry for turning you into Mystique. I don't know what happened there, but still, we are all there. We're laughing about it. Nobody feels ashamed or mistake or anything like that. It's just fun, and that makes us human, and that makes that connection so worthy.
Yeah. And who wouldn't want to go to work when it's really fun, right? And I think you said two things that are really telling and very interesting. The first one was that you wanted to get out of corporate, and how many people are leaving corporate in their droves now from dissatisfaction. So I'd love to hear why you wanted to leave. But the second thing you said is about safety and creating a safe space. And, we learned this in Certified Business Coach, that psychological safety is the number one factor that that will have people engaged and keep them at work and keep them contributing. So how do we begin to bring that into businesses? How do we take what we've been learning and this lovely safe space and take it somewhere where maybe it doesn't feel so safe?
So can I dotted line that? Because I think when you talk about service, and so just for the audience, the context of this podcast and having Elisa on is that she put a beautiful post out about service in the workplace, right, and in the world. And this is the thing I love, is that why have we been conditioned to think that being yourself for work and just being yourself are two separate things? Now, obviously, I have a bit of a potty mouth, and there is a time and a place, and you can't do that. But essentially, I talk about the core. And what was really interesting about something you sent across to us in terms of your introduction is, having people pleased. And so I have for 40 odd years of my life done service for others, but it's been from a people pleasing perspective. And what can happen, as I'm sure anyone that people pleases can resonate with this, is that at some point there's always a condition attached to it, that whether you recognize it or not, and then that breeds resentment, right? And so what's really, really interesting, as well as how can we bring fun and service into the workplace, is how can we do it in such a way that we are not people pleasing? And I think that takes a level of self-awareness and growth and being surrounded by the right souls to be able to go on that journey, right? Sorry, I just had to get that out.
No. It's really important what you said, because there's a vast distinction. It took me a very long time to learn this. I thought that people pleasing was serving people. Actually, what I didn't realize is that people pleasing comes from my ego. It comes from fear. It's the opposite of service. Service is free of ego. People pleasing comes from the ego, which is, I want to be liked, I want validation, I want approval. It comes from all of these things, all fear-based. Whereas true service is free of all of that. You're doing something, it's driven by love. You're doing something because you just love the person sitting in front of you. And that might sound crazy even in a work context, again, because we're bringing in this idea of love. But that's because we have this crazy screwed up idea that the only form of love is romantic love. Whereas I believe that love is who we truly are, and that this whole universe is held together by this power called love. And when we begin to tap into that more, and like you said, bring the self-awareness, recognize, where am I people pleasing? Where is this actually about me? And when am I in true service to others, which is free. It's not even free of self. It's free of the idea that there is a self and there is an other.
Wow.
Mic drop.
It's just gone. My head's just gone. I think we need to end the podcast there. I can't cope. That's just too much for me to process.
Well, okay, so
no, but it's good. It's good.
Maybe if I can explain that a little bit more. So I was brought up very much with ideas and the concepts around unity, the unity of mankind, the oneness of people. But I never really, I think for me, like when I got into a personal development journey, I began to understand that on a whole different level. And I don't know if you both are familiar with the work of Byron Katie. If you're not, totally encourage you to read her books. She's the bomb. Oh my God, have I just showed my age by saying the bomb? Anyway,
moving swiftly on.
She talks about how the mind creates this idea of separation, and so any thoughts of separation are not they're not a reflection of reality. Actually, everything is one. And the idea, as she said, there is no self and there is no other. We're all one. And even the idea of self is an illusion created by the mind. And for me, that really deepened my understanding of what unity is, because it meant that if I have thoughts of separation or competition or resentment, they're coming from these ideas of I'm separate to others. Whereas when we get into this understanding of what benefits me, benefits everyone else, what benefits everyone else. So when we can begin to broaden our vision out to what's going to benefit all of us here as a company, what's going to benefit all of us as a community, what's going to benefit all of us as humanity, what's going to benefit all of us, life becomes a lot easier. And we achieve a lot more, and no one has to suffer anymore. Sorry, I'm going deep quick. I feel like I should just put this Mystique background back on just to lighten things up. Is it going to work? It's not working. There we go.
No, don't do that.
Lightening up the mood.
I was really impressed when I just in order to prepare a little bit what we're talking about, I went to your website and you had that nice section about me there, which is usually the first section where you look when you check out a person's website. And I think this says a lot about your service attitude, right? So when you said, okay, so do you want to tell us a little bit what brought you from that situation 4 years ago to the me that you are now? Yeah,
sure. So what really woke me up to consciously creating myself, who is it that I want to be? How do I want to live my life? What is it that I want to create? Was having a daughter, and she was about, I don't know, she was about maybe 4 weeks old, and I put her in a baby belt. So I went and had a shower, and when I was in the shower, I was being super triggered with these past memories, because I'd been in not just one abusive relationship, but a few. And when I came out of the shower, and and this was daily for me, feeling shame, feeling self-disgust, almost feeling like a failure. That was my biggest one. I'm intelligent. How did I let that happen to me? It was very much incredibly judgmental towards myself and others. And I remember I came out of the shower and I saw her, and I just thought, how do I stop her going through that? Like, it was almost like this horror moment, like, oh my God, I don't want her going through that. How do I stop her going through that? And then this voice in my head was like, Elisa, you have to change. And in that moment, I just realized that's what I have to do. I have to change. I have to become the role model that I want to be for her. That's how I stop her going through it. Or at least that's the best chance I can give her to prevent that happening to her. So I really began to think from literally like that moment on, who do I want to be? Like, where are my weak spots? How to, I think, in fact, that might have been my turning point for hiring my first coach. And I remember even when I contacted her, I couldn't be honest. I said that I was feeling stuck in my business. But obviously, like, she was a good coach. So very quickly we got to what's at the root of this. And it was, I didn't really know who I was. I had low self-esteem, felt like a failure, felt like I'd wasted what should have been the best period of my life. Lots and lots of judgment. So she helped me to release that. And then all I literally kept doing was, okay, so what do I want to work on next? Right, I want to work on my money mindset. My money's horrible. I've got a daughter. I want her to be really good with money. So I took a money mindset course. That led me on to taking a speaking course. And I was the quietest person. And so that's what I just kept doing. I just like kept investing in myself, which for me was a completely new concept, to invest in myself. That's like, what? And taking that action. But yeah, that's what woke me up. And obviously I'm super grateful to my daughter, who had all of that wisdom in her at only 4 weeks old. What is she going to be like when she's like 30?
And you know, one thing I would just comment on, and I'm sure anyone that's got a partner that's had kids, is you did this at a time when there is massive change, right? You've had the euphoria of all these good hormones while you're carrying your daughter, right? So that crashes, you're sleep deprived, you know, she's demanding, you're probably there on your own, right? Because you're on maternity leave or taking a break from the business. And so for you to have that epiphany, and not only have that epiphany, but to then act on it, is really, really interesting. And so just going back to that being the moment. So 4 years down the line, after all the personal growth and all the personal development, all the wonderful things you're putting out on LinkedIn and in the world in general, was that the way that you'd plan the journey? So from that epiphany onwards, did you like have a plan? Because you're dealing with a young baby and stuff. Like, talk to us a bit about that. How was that?
Yeah, I had no plan. I just kept putting one foot in front of the other. So like I said, for example, like I had a coach, and I remember like on our third session, she said to me, like, I don't know what else I can do with you. Have you thought about becoming a coach? So she put this idea, and I hadn't considered that before. I didn't even really know what coaching was, but I knew that the work that she did was so important to me that I thought, oh my God, like that's an option, that I could do something as incredible and powerful as this. Like, so, and I think just about then I found Coaching Mastery or something like that. Anyway, I bought that. And then I did this money mindset course, and that had an exercise within it that you had to write down 100 things you want. And I got to about 33, and I was scraping the barrel because I'd never even considered this question before. What do I want? And I literally, when I say scraping the barrel, I remember that I had leggings with no holes in made the list, and a new shed. That's like how exciting my life was at the time. But two things came up on this list, which were really like unusual. I had no idea where they came from. It was a free writing exercise. And one was that I wanted to find my voice. And I didn't even really know what that meant. Like, what does that mean? This thing that's come out of my pen, I want to find my voice. And the second thing was, I want to become a good public speaker. And again, very unusual for me, because I was, especially at that time, very quiet, very, you know, like my self-esteem's in the toilet. And then I think like 2 days later, I saw an advert for a speaking course. So I thought, just buy that. So I was really just taking one step in front of the other and listening to what was coming up and then following that. But something else that I did very quickly, I realized how so many women at the time, but of course men do as well, but how so many women go through what I went through, if not an abusive relationship, if low self-esteem, if low self-worth, you know, all of these things, but no one was talking about it. Yeah. And these were, you know, I know very accomplished, very intelligent, very high, well-paid women who had the same thing going on. and no one was talking about it. So I decided that I was going to start talking about it. So I set up a Facebook group and just started to invite women into it. And then just start, like, literally, I don't know where it came from. And then I started coming up with tools because I was so inspired by my daughter. I thought, I don't just want to help the women, I want to help the kids as well. So I would come up with like some kind of theme every month that we would do, like money mindset, for example, or it might be on self-worth or something. And I would make one for the women in the group and then one for the kids, like a kiddie version of whatever it was, with, you know, with like nice kind of coaching exercises and stuff. And I did, and that just grew and grew and grew. I had no agenda with it, no plan. I was just doing it for the love of doing it because I wanted to make a difference. And then at some point I realized, right, I really need to make some money again. And then that's when I decided to do CBC, because I had a marketing agency, but I really felt that I wasn't growing and I wanted to grow again. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. No plan, just kept taking one foot in front of the other.
And my
this
key
was awesome. This was awesome. And you mentioned two very important things for me. On one hand, also find your voice, and find an authentic voice, and take the things that trigger you, take them out on the street. I mean, we live in a world where we have social media, where everybody with a smartphone can have a voice. Right, we can do this everywhere. If we use in the podcast, if we are just posting on LinkedIn, even on Facebook or Insta, we can have a voice. And by doing that, we had it actually a little bit before when I was talking this today to Monil quickly, also about some other colleagues who are in the CBC group, on really finding their voice on LinkedIn, being active there. It doesn't need to be that everybody agrees with what you're saying, but stay authentic, say what you believe. Yeah. And I think this is what I also see on the post that you are doing, especially now also by focusing on what service means, and how also when you talk about yourself, finding your voice and what you do, I think and that you say, okay, service is love, right? It's not that, but it goes very close in hand with self-love. So you can't do any service if you're not loving yourself. So do you agree on that, or how would you describe this?
I think it's a really interesting one, and maybe I haven't figured this out yet, and I'll tell you why. So, like, intellectually and definitely in my spirit, I believe like self-love is really love, right? There is no, like, you can't divide love up. Love is, to me, love is the entity that everything is made and emanates from. So we can't divide love into self-love and other love. And if we're not loving ourselves, then we have a misunderstanding about what love is, because there should be no difference. So I know that kind of intellectually, and I know that in my spirit, but still I struggle sometimes. And one of the things actually that I really had a big insight about when we were in Tallinn was that I don't know enough, or kind of allow myself to have my own desires. And by that, I mean, I'm not talking kinky stuff. I'm talking, that I want to travel, right? I want to travel. I want to be around the best people in the industry. I want to, I want to be out and about at networking things, but not like boring business networking. I mean, with amazing people. And so I've got these desires, but I've really been denying myself those things, especially maybe because I've had kids and I've really been very dedicated to being at home for my kids. Maybe because I'm projecting like my own childhood stuff onto them, I don't know, but I've been very attached to my kids for the past 7 years, and they're 4 and 7 now. But I've wanted to make sure that I pick them up from school every day. I don't want them ever to like not be picked up by their mum or their dad. And so I feel like actually that was my insight, that maybe I have been denying myself my own desires. And if I'm truly to serve others, then I need to get in touch with what my desires are, because that's when I'm in my highest service. When I'm not being, then it might come down to kind of, some people serve out of people pleasing, some people serve out of self-flagellation, which definitely I used to do. But really, that you have both sides. You should know what your own desires are, and you should help others fulfill theirs too. Like, this is real love. So I feel like I'm still working this out. I'm working on this.
What strikes me is when you say that, I hadn't thought of that. I hadn't thought of that definition of love being, well, there should just be love, this omnipotent singular thing, and then there are people or things under it, like the world, plants, the environment, each other, ourselves. I love that. How do you have these conversations about love and service with your corporate clients? Because we met through Certified Business Coach, which is as Ajit says, or as you guys say, coach the person, consult the problem. How do you, in your client base, then, service I think is more straightforward. How do you then weave in love with that when you're having these conversations?
I mean, again, it's a really interesting conversation. And I was speaking with a fellow English coach a couple of days ago who now lives in America. And he was saying to me that, in America, it's it's much easier to have these conversations. In business, but in England, it's still very, very difficult. And, England is a very secular culture. We don't talk about emotions here. We don't talk about stuff that's going on for us. We don't talk about spiritual stuff and love. Like, it's not in the cultural landscape to talk about that stuff. However,
you should visit Switzerland.
Right, okay. I'm up for it though. I'm up for a visit to Switzerland if you're offering, Mike. So and I know that I have held back before. And of course there's appropriateness, right? You said about this as well. There's appropriateness, and is this relevant? But some of the best conversations that I have had with I'm thinking back to a sales director of about a 20 million pound company, manufacturing, just very male dominated. And I can't even remember how we got to talking about it, but we ended up talking about like spiritual stuff, and we went right into quantum physics and all sorts, and he loved the conversation. And he said, and he kind of whispered it to me, even though it was only us two in his office. He kind of whispered, not everyone here likes that kind of stuff, so, but I think that when you're being yourself, I have a choice. I know that I have a choice. I can either be myself and stand up for what I believe is right and what I think actually is of service, or I can hide away out of fear. And I definitely know that the latter is not a choice that I want to subscribe to anymore. I did that for a long enough time. With the first one, what I'm noticing is that when I trust that that what I believe to be is true, the right people come to me, the right conversations open up. People, they might think it's a bit weird because it's unusual more than anything. It's just like unusual. Someone else contacted me recently. She never said a word to me, really, apart from very business-like stuff when I was working with her. But she contacted me recently, and she said something like, "Thanks, Elisa. Keep making a difference in the world." And that really touched me, because I felt like even though she had never responded to any of that kind of stuff, she clearly got something from me that I was trying to do. she was the kind of person I was like, does she even like me? It was like one of those kind of relationships. But she heard that. And I think that, like, when you, especially for you two as well, because you're both men, right? And I think it's even harder for men to talk about emotions and like being into like anything that's not, anything that's remotely spiritual. I think it's even harder in this culture anyway. But when you do it, when you're bold and brave enough, bold and bold enough to have these conversations and to be yourself, when you just walk in and you're just like bold, right? You give permission. Oh, is it going to be one of those times? You give permission for other people to open up.
You do.
Absolutely.
And you do. And I found that, I've always had, my dad died when I was 10. So I've been raised by kind of two older sisters and my mum, right? And whether if my dad had been around, it would have been the same. But I have quite a lot of feminine energy and I'm comfortable with it. I remember my ex-brother-in-law telling me, you're politically incorrect, and this isn't meant to be offensive, but he goes, you're the gayest straight man I know. Because like, I like to dress well and all that sort of stuff, right? Or I did at the time.
He still does dress well. He's not wearing his shirt that I saw him wear, but hopefully you should do that. You should put that shirt.
I will do that. I'm on a promise.
I was thinking of the same shirt right at the moment.
That was a bold shirt. Bold.
It is a bold and bold shirt. But what I found is that when I have opened up, because for me, even though I'm a man and I am a lad's lad, right, usually, people just see you in a different way and people open up to you. And I remember the first coaching course I remember speaking to the facilitator and saying, why do I keep attracting the broken people? And she said, because you resonate with them. They see and feel something from you that draws them in, that wants you to open them up. And that's your service to the world. It's not a bad thing. And up until that point, I felt like it was a bad thing, right? And it's actually not a bad thing. It's a really, really beautiful thing to be able to have people who you don't essentially know that well just open up to you. To me, it's the ultimate gift. And that's one of the reasons why I'm sure, for me, I know that this is what I have to do for the rest of my life. I have to. It's not negotiable. It's not, it'd be nice if it works. It has to happen, right? So yeah, I just it's just because you talked about men and not being able to open up. Well, what's your experience been like on that, Mike?
I don't know. I'm not so sure about that because I'm on that journey now since around 5 years. Mm-hmm. And before I didn't really, so spirituality or anything like that wasn't really a topic for me. So I felt, but also I was completely disconnected to myself. And it happened something in my life, what I told you the last time also, that my wife got sick. And then I got in touch with plant medicine, and that changed my life. So the way how the plant let me see myself, or even dive into my own childhood trauma and all those things, it really helped to understand where my trauma is. Second, how those thoughts or those fears that I had shaped my behaviors and my attitude and the way how I went through life and my belief system. So in order to break that up, I needed that. And when Vision was talking about the 4 levels of consciousness and they had this Kensho moment, I said, okay, I'm exactly that person. So I had to be pushed by the universe so many times to go from one pain to the other, until you all of a sudden start facing that. And it's funny. I was very open, even in the corporate world. I mean, I also told CEO of the company that I'm going to the Amazon on a plant medicine retreat. And I was part of the executive board. I mean, there was actually one colleague of mine who said, oh, I would love to go there as well. So it opened conversations where I didn't think that it would open. It connected me with so many other people because I was just open about it. And I just said, okay, this is what helps me. And other people probably go to psychologist or something, but I prefer doing 10 years psychology in treatments in one night. And it was really good to open up. But also with doing that, you can speak. I mean, I think Elisa, you said that other people come into your life. So the energy that you send out is the energy that you get back. And at the moment when you are authentic with yourself, when you speak from your heart, when you talk about the things that really matter to you, and not wear all those shitty masks that we wore in the corporate environment, you attract exactly those people who you need to have in your life.
Yeah.
And the others, there might be, I mean, I don't want to know how many people speak behind my back or something, but to be honest, I don't really care, because yeah, they are at the moment right there where they belong to, behind my back, right? So I'm in front, so that's good. So I have no issues to be open, to show vulnerability or anything like that to others, and it just helped me actually to discover who I am, because also when you are like that, other people open up as well, and then you have a complete different conversation, and that also helps me to reflect even further. So therefore, no need on that.
And the thing I'd add to that is, you know, I think we've both said, I think all three of us have said, you know, corporate life isn't for us. Having said that, I am massively grateful. I had great fun. It's taught me a lot of stuff about life, about me as a human being. And so I'm massively grateful for that. So I don't want anyone to take away from this that we're all kind of disparaging corporate life, because it has a place, right? And I know we're not. And also, if you are in that corporate wheel and you enjoy it, then that's fine. But just know that there is a journey, and just know that we're all on our journey. And I would just appeal to anyone, if there's one thing I would ask everyone to do, is just be aware of yourself, right? Because then all the answers will come. They may not come in the way that you want them to or the time that you want them, but if you just are aware of yourself, then magical things will happen, right? And this is how I was brought to these beautiful souls that are on this call now, right? So sorry, I had to go deep, Elisa. Sorry, I couldn't just let you do it on your own, right? So
yeah, no, and I think you're right. It's not that there's anything inherently wrong with corporate life or with working in a large company or you know, whatever it is. There's nothing inherently wrong with it. I was speaking with a guy yesterday, a coach called Ranjam Kumar. He came up with a wonderful expression that business culture is like the soul of a company. Mm-hmm. Right? And I love that, because but what it shows is currently a lot of companies are missing the soul, right? And it's not because there's no soul there, it's because they've not really consciously sat down and thought about what is it that we want to create, what kind of environment do we want to create, how do we want people to feel when they come to work, and what's our purpose? You know, they haven't sat down.
It's the best question, right?
And this is the soul of the company. And when people have the soul, then you know, and because like if we all have something else to us, right, we're not just bodies, then bringing that into everything that we do. But if we're not showing it, like how do we bring soul into a company? We have to show our soul. Do you know what I mean? Our soul and
the employees, or we are the soul of the company, right? And don't you
she lost me at arsehole.
Oh dear, sorry.
No, that's awesome.
Breathe.
So
It's very good for the.
Don't you think, Elisa, it's fun if companies go to marketing agencies and ask them, can you help us define our purpose to make some nice marketing slides? I always think this is, you need to know what your purpose is. That's that's the core of the company.
Yeah.
Right.
I think the challenge, the challenge when we talk about our souls is that you know, I've been blessed in my last two companies. They've had a really good culture, and they've had a really good vision of, you know, what they want to do in the world, and how that translates to product and stuff, right? I feel there is still a bit of a disconnect, because to get to the point that you're talking about, the only way to do it is from top down, for there to be vulnerability and authenticity. And the, you know, the closest thing that I've seen that comes anywhere near it is, you know, Patrick Lencioni and his 5 dysfunctions. But even that is too corporate. That doesn't really embrace the human spirit. And I remember you know, earlier talked about spirituality. So there's, you know, how do you begin to join that dot? Because until you join that dot, then the company, the idea of a soul will be there, but the soul can't exist because all the ingredients aren't there.
What we could do, we could change the analogy to a beautiful lampshade without any light in it, and then we don't have to say our soul anymore. How do you do it? I think that there are a lot of companies, like a lot of leaders, a lot of founders who really want to do this, right? They have this desire to create something that's going to make genuine change, that has a purpose, but they don't necessarily know yet, how do I literally verbalize and vocalize this? They've got their own fears getting in the way. What are people going to think? What are my staff going to think? What are investors going to think? So you have that, but then also they maybe don't necessarily know, well, how do I filter this down throughout my company? Like, what does this actually mean? And for me, I think that there are a few levels to this, but one is the transformation of leadership. So, you know, like you say, so many companies have values, right? But it's just like some nice slides or a nice little section on their website. These are our values. But they're just kind of, it's almost like an automatic reaction. We're just going to do it, rather than them really thinking, right, how do we live these values? As a leader, am I living these values? Am I showing and demonstrating these values every day? As a department, as a marketing department, are we living our value of integrity, for example? Or are we actually telling some fibs in our marketing stuff? Are we bluffing our way through some bullshit PR articles or whatever? Or are we leading with integrity? So I think they have there's lots of people that have their desire, but they don't know, how do I actually manifest this in my company? How do I make it a reality? And I think that's two part. That is like internal personal commitment to grow, to essentially to be the change. And then on a second level, it's right, okay, so let's properly nail down the vision of the company. Let's get all of the executive team together and nail down the vision of the company. Right, let's really think about what our values are. Now let's think about how does our values and our vision, I'm going to get it out, it's like bold and bold. How do they play out in every single area of our company? Where do we need to put more work in? Because actually, you know, we're not demonstrating this value. There's a disconnect between our vision and what the purchasing department are doing or whatever. But this is how you practically do it. That's what I meant. It's walking, I would say walking a spiritual path with practical feet. I'm trying to think of a more corporate-y way to say that, but it's essentially like, but how do you practically live your vision and live your values? What does that look like? And I think that's where people like us, we can help them do that, because you can implement it very, very practically. And then you have like periodic reflection on it, how things are going. but it's just a bit of a mindset shift. But I think all it is a lot of leaders, they don't have a lot of examples of other companies doing this, case studies essentially to learn from. They don't have a lot of examples. So they just probably don't know how. And also there's all the internal fears around doing that. Like, we're all growing, we're all developing, we've all got fears. How do we begin? And that's where coaching comes in.
I think it's very important what you say, especially on an executive level, because all those people there, especially the CEO, they are attacked from all sides, right? So everybody is looking at them. So you have the shareholders, you have regulators, you have different people who are just, you have the media, you have just people who are looking, okay, is there something which doesn't work, or which shows some vulnerability where we can go into. So it's very hard for those people to go on those soft skills. And this is why I really loved when you wrote that LinkedIn post also about lip service and leadership, because I think it's so important that you are authentic, that you say what you mean, and especially when you say that you do it, and not that you just fake your way through in order to hopefully not make a mistake and just say things to please others. So do you have any experience on that in terms of coaching C-levels on such a level on those issues?
Yeah, I have one particular client that I think are really great examples of doing as they say. Very kind, caring. The three directors of the company are all very kind, caring, open, all men, older men as well. Maybe not one of them.
Whoops.
I say that because I've worked with, for example, a lot of my clients used to be in manufacturing, and it was very much an old boys club. I was complete anomaly for, obviously I was in marketing, so you expect women in marketing, but I was very much an anomaly when I went into board meetings. It was me and a bunch of suited up 50, 60-year-old men with white hair. And there's a lot of rules and regulations, and but the leaders, to me, the ones that really engage and are respected and who people want to follow, are the ones who do as they say, and the ones who care. And I see that with them, and they've experienced extraordinary growth. I mean, doubling their revenue in a couple of years, which is for especially a manufacturing company, that's not easy to do because their margins are so small. And then the other great example I have to say is working with EverCoach, because I work directly with Ajit and Fran and some of the other members of the team. And there's very much, their company values are love, service, care. I've forgotten the other one, but they've got another one. But I very much feel that in the leadership, like we genuinely on the team all love each other. We all support each other. We're all cheerleading each other on. There is zero sense of competition, zero sense of owner, like this is mine, that's yours. It's not like that at all. And that comes from the top down. And again, kudos to Ajit, because a very small team. I think there's only like 8 people on the core team, and I think they turn over 20 million, but around that $20 million company for a small team, that's an amazing accomplishment.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And again, I to me, it's because and again, no one is perfect. We're all making mistakes. We're all learning. That's what it is. We're all learning, but it's, do I own my mistakes? And do I learn from them? That's true growth. So I would say those are my 2 best examples, and it's been my privilege to work with both of them.
Do you know what came up for me as you were both talking about that is this phrase, and it ties back to something we said right at the start about why is there this segmentation between work and not work, right? And the phrase I just thought of is soul dilution. Mm-hmm. Right? So we go through life you know, when we're kids, we're very aware of what we want, and we're just like balls of impulse and we do it. And then as we get older, you know, that dilutes and we do things like people pleasing, or our self-esteem suffers. And so for me, you know, the unity of it all is beautiful, is because anyone that you meet in a corporate world, or as a founder or a CEO or whatever, is a person, right? So when we talk about the values of a company, you know, day one as a founder, you're like, right, I'm going to change the world, I'm going to do this, that, and the other, right? And then you start getting shareholders, and then you start getting investors, and then you start, you know, getting bigger teams, and slowly but surely that feels like it just gets diluted down. And so the question for me is that one of, if not the reason why it's so difficult for companies to have souls, or to stick to those souls, or to define what that is? Because if we as people are diluting, then what chance has anything we've got that we create, right?
But again, I think that comes down to the commitment of the individual and the culture that they would like to create. And, you know, everyone is going to face challenges. You know, let's take it back to Ajit. I'm sure he has faced many challenges, right? Our ego likes to show up in so many different ways. For some of us, our ego shows up in, well, I'm the best. For some of us, it's, oh no, I'm the worst. I'm going to make myself really small so no one can see me. It shows up in so many different ways. And I think that, you know, like if I'm grateful to my ego for one thing, I know that by having it, I'm always going to be growing, because it's always going to be challenging me at some new level. My ego is going to pop up, and then hopefully at some point I'm going to learn from it, and that will be humbled again. But on the other hand, so how do you keep this? And I think it's your commitment, and what are you putting into your personal growth? How much are you committed to this culture that you want to create, to this change that you want to create? And if it feels really tough, and it's probably going to, hire a coach to help you out with it. Like, that's the whole job of a coach, right? Is to we hold people accountable to their higher selves.
Yep.
Not to their ego. Like when your ego pops up, and it will do, like we're at the point where we call out the ego, and then we're like, right, come on, like let's get you back, let's pull you back up, because this is what you told me you wanted to create. What's getting in the way? Let's help you get over that. And you know, I'm sure as you guys do, you've invested in yourself, and really I think this is just what it comes down to. A coach can help you do that.
Yep.
Hire a coach, especially these two.
Thank you. But I think you hit the nail on the head, and I think you just answered the question that I had, and the epiphany that I've had is the reason these things either don't get defined or lose traction and get diluted is because people stop investing in themselves. Mm-hmm. Because if you accept that your work is never done, whether you've got, you know, a company that's worth £10 or 10 billion, right? If you are of the mindset that my work is never done, and that's not coming from a place of insecurity, but it's coming from a place of how can I be better? How can I serve better? How can the products that we create add more value to the world? That is a very, very different headspace to then thinking, right, well, I started this at 20, I'm 35 now, you know, it's generating X amount of revenue. I don't, you know, I've got a team to worry about things. No, you are the North Star. You were the North Star. You always will be the North Star unless you sell it. And whilst you are the North Star, you know, you are almost, if those things are important to you, if the culture and if the soul of the company and all that sort of stuff is important to you, which it should be, because it'll be important to your customers, then you accept that you're on this continuous journey of personal growth. And for some reason, a lot of us just decide to stop when we finish school or university or formal education, right? Because the system is bent out of shape, I think.
Yeah, I'm not even sure that we consciously decide to stop. It's almost
it just happens. Yeah,
it happens. And it's like, right, go get a job now. Go get a mortgage, go and get married, you know. Well, and obviously, like, those are lovely, wonderful things, but there's at no point is there okay, what would you like to consciously create for your life? How would you want to serve humanity? What are your values that you're going to measure your decisions by? Nobody has those conversations with us.
No.
But that's cool, because maybe it wasn't in the consciousness of humanity before, but now it is, and now it's becoming more and more a part of our consciousness that, okay, the way that we're doing things isn't working. We need to look for another way, and that requires a different level of thinking and being.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got a big question for you then, right? One thing, and I'm going to keep you honest on this, right? And actually, you can both answer this. One thing that everyone should do, that will ensure that service in the ways that you and we have defined it and talked about so far continues to happen. And not only does it continue to happen, it grows, and it grows exponentially. So it's a big, long question and very existential, but yeah, good luck with that.
I would add something to that as well. So to make that question a little bit longer, because also not just what can you do, but also how can you bring more service and heart into your professional life. So just add that little angle to it.
Yeah.
And then it goes also back to you.
I've forgotten the original question, of course. So like I genuinely have, what was it again?
So it's how can you bring, so let's just shorten it and let's just use Mike's last question, which is how can you continue and multiply service in the professional world or in our professional lives, right?
Yeah, I think it comes from broadening our vision from outside of ourselves to, okay, how can I benefit my team? How can I benefit the whole company? How can I benefit my community? How can I benefit the economy of the country in which I live? How can I benefit the world? When we think outside of ourselves, this is where service comes from. Because like I said earlier, we no longer see the division between what's good for me and what's good for someone else. When we're in ego, it's about what's good for me, because it's coming from fear. Like I need to hold on, I need to get my space, but who benefits from that? You often don't, and no one else does. But when we can think outside of ourselves, and there was a quote that I read maybe a year ago that really helped me shift my mindset, especially around money. And of course, business is about money as well. It's about impact, but it's also about generating profit and generating revenue. And the quote was from Abdul Bahar, and he said, "Wealth is most praiseworthy, provided everyone is wealthy." Yeah. And when I read that, my first kind of inclination was, oh my God, I can't be wealthy then. It's really bad to be wealthy. And because that's my old level of thinking, like I grew up with that thinking. But then when I looked at it with fresh eyes, all right, what can I take from this? It was like, okay, how can we make everyone wealthy then? To me, that feels like the way better choice out of the two of them. It's like, all right, we can all be poor, or it's really bad to be poor, and we should all be in poverty. Or how can I use my gifts and talents to make sure everyone is wealthy? And now that feels like an amazing challenge that I can use to serve others and myself. Like we all benefit from that, right? Who doesn't benefit from being wealthy? And the beauty of that kind of thinking is not only that we progress and we advance materially, which of course, like we all want to do, right? Like when I went to Talit, I wanted to stay in a really nice hotel. I don't want to stay in a dump. But at the same time, we progress materially and we progress spiritually, because we're thinking outside of our ego. We're thinking outside of the self to how can everyone benefit? And I think for me, that's what service is. Yep.
I could have swapped my city box room in Tallinn for your opulent, wherever you were.
I was going to go for that. And then I was like, nah.
Thanks. Yeah. I could just about swing a cat in there.
I saw the picture, and then I was like, right, I haven't been anywhere in like 7 years. I'm staying in the nice one.
Which was the nice one?
I stayed in a Swiss hotel, which was
fancy.
No, had a spa and everything, had it all to myself.
Fancy.
Not bad.
Check you out. Right. So Do we feel we've done service justice as a conversation point? What do you all think?
I would add 1 point.
Yeah.
Go for it.
1 point, because I think this is only how you can add service to your heart. I think if there is one action step that everybody should learn or should practice, it would be, for me, empathy. So everyone needs to learn empathy and what empathy means as an ability to understand and to share the feelings of others, to really connect with them, to use those moments, those interactions that you have on a day to consciously place yourself also in the shoes of your colleagues or your clients, considering their perspectives, considering their needs, right, and their challenges. Because if you do that, then you develop a much more service-oriented mindset, and that helps you to bring service on a higher efficiency and a higher engaging level for the entire overall, let's say, professional environment.
Yeah,
Did I say that right?
Beautiful.
You did.
Okay.
I love that. Yeah. There's not much more to add to that. I think we've fixed love and service and authenticity, and like the world is a better place now.
Yeah.
But
so we can get Mystique back.
I'm going to get back on.
But on a serious note, right, there should, and just to what Mike's saying, there should really be a call to action for all of us, right? Like when someone just little Mystique is back, just little things like, you know, when someone cuts you up, or, you know, someone pushes past you, just have that empathy, because if you start practicing that in your personal life, it's going to make it so much easier to deal with people like Mystique in your professional life as well.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. Like and it is the little things. It's not like, you know, I think sometimes people think, and I think I used to, that changing the world, you have to do something massive. You have to, I don't know, whatever. It has to be this grandiose thing. It doesn't. You begin changing the world by changing yourself. Be kind to yourself. Be empathetic to yourself. Forgive yourself for your past mistakes. When you begin to do these, and I certainly did when and I still do it all the time as a regular practice. But when you begin to just turn it in on you first before anything else, what happens is you forgive yourself. It becomes so much easier to forgive others. Yeah. When you're compassionate for your past mistakes. Now it's so much easier to be compassionate towards, you know, the people that you live with, your mom, your dad, your significant other, you know, like the lady in the street, someone who's struggling, whatever. So just start with yourself. Like, I genuinely believe that when we change ourselves, we change the whole world automatically. Yes. Like we are, like, I am humanity. I am a representation of humanity. You're a representation of humanity. When you add love where there was previously fear, or maybe fear is the absence of love, I don't know, but when you add love to it, like, you're just adding love. You're not just adding love to you, you're adding love, full stop.
Mm-hmm. You said one of the most important things. I think it's all in the little things. It's in the little things that you're doing. And there is a book, which it's quite old, but it's one of my famous business books. It's called Bold, Be Brave in Business and Win. So putting that into a professional environment, there are 10 case studies in that book. And one is about a bank in, I think it was Oregon or something. And the bank is called Umpqua. And the CEO of that bank, Ray Davis, he's definitely a person I would love to meet once. And maybe if somebody knows him who's listening to that, this guy should come to one of those podcasts, because he said, okay, we are just a small bank. We have not so many assets under management, and we just would like to change the way. But what we want to be is we want to have the most customer-centric bank in the world, the most customer-friendly bank ever, the best service that you can offer. And so he actually, and I think this is so brilliant, he let all his employees or at least the front-end employees, be trained by Ritz-Carlton. So in order to learn service skill, because in the tourism industry, this is where you learn what it means to be at service, right? And he gave everybody in the customer front desk or customer service a specific amount per month, which they could do if something went wrong. And they were not measured on how much money they have saved of that budget by the end of the month. They were all measured and how many people gave 10 out of 10 in terms of service. And because everybody understands that mistakes might happen or something like that, right? So we're all human. But if you show that you show empathy, that you care, I think then you can make a change. And this is also it goes for me really to the heart at service. So, and everybody, everyone, every human being is in situations where he can be at service of someone, and therefore, that's just a little business anecdote from something which is an example which I truly love. These guys.
It's a great case study, and I think it's such a good example as well of how there is, I think there's so much fear around, but if we put these things first, love, care, service, if we put our values first and our purpose first, we're not going to be as profitable.
Yeah.
And it's just not true. It's normally the very opposite is true. This is what sustains your growth.
Exactly.
And there's such a great case study that you brought up to demonstrate that.
Yeah. And also, I mean, what he really said is, and I think this was also smart, he forced everyone who worked for that company had to pick up the phone and say, welcome to Amcor, the best bank in the world, which sounds silly, right, to say that.
I love it.
But it's a psychological effect. If you say, welcome at Amcor, best bank in the world, or the most customer-centric bank in the world, you can't say, oh, sorry, I can't help you. You just can't, right? You are responsible to find a solution. And I thought this was so smart. And this really helped that company to grow, because like you said, it's people think, okay, then we're not profitable if we do that. It's exactly the opposite, because the return of investment will be so much higher because everyone will talk about that. And I mean, I have never been a customer of that bank. I just read that case study, and I thought this is so amazing, to be a small challenger against the big banks, and the only thing that you're doing is generating positive customer experiences, and by really focusing on that service. So I think if there are any people from banks who are listening to that, check that out.
But I think that whole customer experience piece is a massive thing. I grew up, some of my formative years were in America, where okay, you get paid for good service, but service is at the fore, right? The customer is usually always right. And then when I did customer success management for software companies, it's again about understanding what are the outcomes that these enterprises that you work with want to deliver, and that's in a kind of business to business space. What is still disappointing is in the time that we've been around, service in the B2C field, certainly in this country, is abominable. I left a company after 11 years because of the amount of money I was paying them and the amount of great offers they would throw around to brand new customers. And I'm like, how in the world is that right? Everywhere else in life, we breed loyalty, we foster loyalty, we teach our kids about loyalty, right? And yet when you pay for stuff, like as a consumer, it seems to be the complete opposite, right? So maybe that's another podcast episode that we need to get together for and talk about customer experience, because that is a real passion point of mine.
Yeah, mine as well. Thanks. Elisa, is there anything else where we can serve you for this podcast episode? Because I think we are already far over time, but it was so much fun to talk to you. So is there anything else or anything that you would like to tell the world? Now it's the time.
So what I would tell the world is that you two, Monil and Mike, are just two of the best people that I have met. You're two of the best coaches that I've met. You put yourself out there every single week. When we're doing the training, the certification, you're just like, as soon I met you guys recently. I just love both of you straight away. And both of you would do amazing things for any company who has the privilege to work with you. So I would just like to recommend any company out there who likes these two, and how can you not? You'll especially like Manil Moore when he puts his shirt on to work with you, because you're not going to find any better.
Thank you.
Thank
you so much. It has been our privilege and our honor to have you on here, Elisa.
It's been hilarious
fantastic.
at times.
It's been fantastic. And we'll maybe do a more jokey one next time as well.
Yeah, with our souls.
With arseholes. Yeah, absolutely. And on the subject of arseholes, I will pause the recording now.
Thanks.
Bye.
Hey, bye-bye. Thank you.